Go live here. Oh, cool. That seems to be working. I'm in shock. I'm in shock that it's working. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm really excited that you're here. Hello, Instagram family. It's frozen. But we'll keep going anyway. So I'm at Buddhamouse Emporium in lovely Claremont, California, which is where I went to graduate school, and also where my passion for Buddhism was stoked in this very shop, in this very space. Several of my very close friends are here right now. The owner of Buddhamouse, Charlotte, her partner, Alan, and my research partner, Dr. Mark Dust, is here. And a lovely new friend. Remind me your name?
Carrie.
Carrie is here as well. So thank you all for joining. And this is technically a book reading, but it's also kind of like a family reunion. So June 30th, which is Monday, is the release date for my first non-academic publication. Yeah, right. And if you don't know what an academic publication is, good for you. But I thought what I'd do tonight is just get in. Well, I want to read the introduction to the book to give you a flavor of what it's about, and then also go specifically into how this shop worked into the writing of this book. And then I want to share with you one of the skills that has been really instrumental in my ability to bring calm into my life. And so I want you to take something home with you. Dr. Dust is very familiar with resourcing, but many of you may not be. So anyways, my name is Dr. Rhonda Rodgers. People around here call me Rhonda or Kunsang. So let's get into where the magic happens, journey to inner space. So this is the introduction. It was a magnificent spring day. The sun was just beginning to peek over the foothills of the San Gabriel Mountains, casting a light purple hue across the silvery thread of highways leading from the Inland Empire to the city of Los Angeles. I climbed upon my dream ride, a beautiful BMW 1200 GS motorcycle, and idled the engine, noting the exquisite smell of oil warming in the crankcase. I tapped my toe and the bike clunked into first gear. The chill of the morning air evaporated as the windscreen deflected the frosty breeze over the top of my helmet and away from the warmth emanating from the heated hand grips. This morning commute had once been my favorite time of day, when I was in a happier place. Once upon a time, I found great joy in the simplest of things, like riding a motorcycle or savoring the taste of morning coffee. But those joyful experiences had been slowly dying day by day and month by month, until I found myself stuck in a robotic process of waking, dressing, driving to work, driving home, and then doing it all again. And today was a culmination of this darkness. As I darted in and out of traffic, a single question circled through my mind. Would it be so bad if I died today? My life had become complicated. My marriage was a disaster, my career was ending, and I had no idea what to do next. I became convinced that no matter which option I chose, I would make the wrong move and end up worse off than my current place of hopelessness. This whirlwind of anxiety had been escalating for weeks until the inevitable happened: mental, physical, and emotional breakdown. I entered my place of work, but could no longer pull myself together and face the day. I was in survival mode and needed a place to escape the demons in my own mind. I lowered my head, tears streaming down my face, avoiding eye contact with coworkers, and made my way to a bathroom stall. I was desperately seeking clarity, but encountered a tornado of tragic thoughts and indescribable confusion. I knew that I needed to change something, but was paralyzed by the idea of change and had no idea where to begin. Every mental scenario that I ran created greater fear and anxiety. And it was at this moment that I realized I was out of options. As I sat balled up on the toilet seat with my head in my hands and my eyes tightly shut, I stopped running scenarios in my mind and instead asked for help. Who I asked, I cannot tell you. It may have been God or some dearly departed ancestor, or perhaps even a benevolent order of the cosmos. But at this very moment, an amazing warmth descended from my scalp and traveled slowly down to my abdomen. Every muscle in my body relaxed. A deep burst of air penetrated the depths of my lungs, and a feeling that everything was going to be okay washed over me. The 3 foot by 5 foot industrial metal partition expanded into infinite space. At that moment, I was transported from a place of hopelessness to awe. The question was no longer, what can I do, but what can't I do? I had entered the field of infinite possibility. I began to breathe again and intuited that if I could find my way through one more day, that more information would come to light. This glimpse of hope was enough to carry me forward. Some might call this a spiritual experience, and others might call it hitting bottom. In my story, it was both. More importantly, the experience catalyzed a desire to utilize this power to recreate my life. There were answers out there that were not of my own mental creation, and this was an exciting proposition. You may be asking why I didn't notice my life slowly deteriorating. How had I failed to realize that my inner world had become a never ending barrage of distressing thoughts, images, and sensations? How had I ignored the constant pounding heart, shallow breath, and dry mouth? The truth is that it was a slow, insidious journey. I can't remember when the feelings began, but for as long as I can remember, I would awaken with sensations or feelings of danger in my body, which triggered thoughts of past events and tactical plans to avoid these scenarios. Why does the body and mind react in such a way? Quite simply, this is a physiological survival strategy that occurs without conscious awareness. The word that I chose to define this period of life was chaos, which describes a system that is extremely sensitive to change. In technical terms, I was experiencing the effects of allostatic load, or what we call wear and tear on the body resulting from chronic or repeated stress. After years of constant fear and worry from life circumstances, long work hours, job insecurity, strained relationships, my body began to physiologically change from repeated activation of this biological stress response. Over time, the rational planning network in my brain was less available for problem solving, and as the years wore on, I became more frazzled and more exhausted mentally, emotionally, and physically. These prolonged levels of stress led to feelings of anxiety and depression and contributed to my reliance upon alcohol, which further impacted my health and relationships. I believed that I could pull myself together through sheer willpower, but failed to notice the progressively poor life choices that I was making. I was in a downward spiral and had zero tools to get myself back on track. Sometimes this is exactly the scenario that we need to seek out new information. The important point is that although I fell down, I got back up again and continued to explore and discover new ways of living. If you follow the suggestions in this book, you too can find a way to get back up and begin your own journey to well-being.
Beautiful.
Okay, so that's the introduction is just to give you a teaser of how I got into this line of self-healing. I'm not opposed to outside help, but so much of the work has to happen in our bodies, in our beings. And so I won't give you any spoiler alerts with what happened in this journey, but the marriage ended, the career ended, and I started searching for more information, which led me to discover this book. You may have heard of it, called Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, which, as it would turn out, he taught at a little school right over there called Claremont Graduate University. I came upon this book by accident, or so I thought. It was suggested to me by a total stranger. And I bought the book and I tried to read the book. It made zero sense to me. And are you guys familiar with Jung's theory of synchronicities?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So what you may not know is that Carl Jung was a yogi. He studied Vedanta. He explored Eastern philosophy on a grand scale. But as any good Westerner, he chopped it up and just took the parts that would be most interesting to folks in the West. So this thing about synchronicity, I didn't believe in until someone recommended I read Flow. I bought it. I was sitting at a coffee shop and had Flow on the top of a stack of books. A gentleman with an African accent walked up, total stranger, and said, "This book is really good. Why don't you read? I'm so happy you're reading this book." And wait for it. He said, "It was really challenging for me to get through the first two chapters, but once I got through the first two chapters, it made a lot of sense." I opened the book and the bookmark was where? At the end of the second chapter. So synchronicity, this is a spiritual environment. We were speaking earlier about how important it is to get into this concept of interconnectedness and how we're all breathing the same air and on the same planet. Well, that's part of our healing process too, is paying attention, which brings me to these synchronicities, right? How often do we get little taps on the shoulder like, "Hey, why don't you talk to this person?" or "Hey, why don't you read this book?" And we don't pay attention. Well, I am now a believer in synchronicities. I am a big fan of them, and now that I don't spend as much time in these circuits of the brain that are all survival, I have the bandwidth to actually open up my attention, and I can see when these synchronicities occur. So this book is basically what I was taught by someone when I took one of the 50 or so YouTube tutorials on what book writing is. It's called the teaching memoir. So what it does is it follows my path as I learned new information. And being a researcher, I started trying to build research programs out of this. So that's the boring part. The good news is Mark and I did some very impactful research that showed that this stuff does have not only psychological benefit, but physiological benefit. What kind of stuff? Here's where it gets really simple. Nervous system regulation. Okay, so quick audience poll. How many of you feel totally fine and you sleep well through the night and life is rosy and you are just a picture of serenity? Okay. You do?
Ask Charlotte.
Okay, all right.
Charlotte knows me, yes.
Okay. So without an awareness that we have some agency on our relationship to the outer world, life hits us like waves. Oh no, this is happening. No, this is happening. We were talking a little bit earlier about chronic stress. Life is really amped up recently. I'm not talking about the political environment. I'm talking about what it takes to survive on a paycheck, the cost of things, the information overload. So what if I told you you had some agency in all of that? You have some agency in what you let into your awareness. What if I told you that when something distressing happens, you have some agency to deal with that as well. And that's what our research centered around is nervous system regulation, teaching folks really simple tools based upon trauma-informed practices so that when something does happen, and it will, I mean, I don't know of a single person who's made it through life without aging, illness, or death. It will happen. It will happen to us. It will happen to our loved ones. So with this superpower of being able to balance the nervous system, you do have some agency. And why is this all possible? This is as technical as it gets. Neuroplasticity. And if there's one thing that I want you to walk away from here, it's that whatever we practice, we get good at, including worrying, including flying off the handle, being angry, including compassion, including serenity. You see where I'm going with this? So, the technical term is, whatever circuits we activate more frequently, those build up in kind of it's easier for that threshold to activate. Okay, that's it. Neurons that fire together, wire together. But this is much easier to remember. Whatever we practice, we get good at. Is anyone playing a musical instrument? Used to. Were you amazing the first time you picked it up? Did it take a little while? Absolutely. Okay, so bring that into every aspect of your life. What would you like your life to be like? Would you like to practice compassion, or do you want to practice road rage? And that's not a question to answer. It's a question to think about and to actively pursue. Okay, so this book is a teaching memoir that for those that were here for the introduction, that's what propelled me into this line of work. I had run out of options, and everyone that I went to gave me some really great suggestions. Like the doctor that I went to said, "Oh, you're not sleeping? Let me give you sleeping pills." I'm like, no. Two other healthcare practitioners said, "Oh, you're having a hard time going to sleep. Why don't you just have a drink or two?" And I'm like, oh my, I'm already way over that. The drink or two has turned to 3 or 4. And at some point, the alcohol stopped working. So I would be drunk and stay awake all night in my bed. So this mind is powerful. And let's use one more technical term, if you guys don't mind. The mind and the brain, completely separate. The brain is a physiological organ. The mind is a repository of all of our experiences. And people confuse them all the time. So we're in Buddhamouse surrounded by, all these wonderful ritual objects. And one of the things that all of these wisdom traditions outside of, we'll call them the Western Abrahamic traditions, they really emphasize working with the mind. The mind. How our experiences and our social modeling inform the way we interpret the world and we react to the world. So that is what I was led to in this journey, is working with the mind. And it turns out that the mind is up to a lot that we are not consciously aware of. And so coming back to the book Flow by Mike Csikszentmihalyi, there was one sentence in his book that kicked off this whole journey. The control of conscious attention creates quality of life. Where we put our attention creates our quality of life. Think about that for a second. Do you know anyone who is totally wrapped up in the news cycle and a nervous wreck right now? Where we place our attention creates quality of life. So that's where we have some agency. All right. I am going to read a very important section of the book that happened here in this very space. And then, as I promised before we close, I'm going to give you one tool from the mental and emotional self-management toolkit. Okay, so here we go. I'm in the book, chapter 4. Give me 1 second. Okay. Chapter 4, The Path Appears. By my early 40s, I was ready for extreme change and was willing to up the game and get deeper into meditation. I looked for meditation resources on the internet and found a treasure trove of audio, video, and written words to help soothe the racing thoughts in my mind. I learned that there are 2 general meditation methods, one where we give the mind something to do, focused attention meditation, like breath counting, and one where we open ourselves to everything in our environment so we can notice what our mind is up to outside of conscious attention, open awareness meditation. As a seeker of new experiences, I decided to experiment with both techniques. When the mind was racing, I found it helpful to have something to focus upon during meditation practice. This could be a sound like my own breath, birds chirping outside my window, or the voice of a teacher leading me through a guided meditation. When my mind was less tumultuous, I experimented with being an observer of the show going on in the projector of my mind. Not judging the show, just noticing how quickly these vignettes would arise and float away or morph into other thoughts, scenarios, or flights of fantasy about people, places, and events from the past or future. Anyone ever had that experience during meditation? Oh yeah, when I was 3 years old. Okay. Many of the guided meditations started with the instruction to close the eyes, which for me was tricky. Some days I could comfortably close my eyes, and others it made me feel claustrophobic. If the goal was to quiet the mind, then worrying about the walls closing in was certainly not helping. I made the decision to do whatever would help me to remain in meditation a little longer during each session. I often sat with eyes open, focused on the floor just in front of me. This would help to minimize the distractions of scanning the room visually while giving me a level of comfort in keeping my eyes open. These practices were a great start, but I felt as if I needed more information to understand the intricacies of the meditation experience. As I became open to this possibility, I found a small shop in Claremont, California that had exotic statues in the window. I entered the shop and found a woman named Barb sitting in a plastic lawn chair right there. She had a gentle southern accent, was warm and kind, and I had a strange sense that we knew each other somehow. I told her that I was going through a big transition and needed help finding my way. I was leaving a marriage, a job, a city, and everything that defined my existence. She went to the shelf and pulled down The Places That Scare You, A Guide to Fearlessness in Difficult Times by Pema Chodron. I laughed and mentioned how nice it was for this person to write a book about my life. Barb assured me that she had read the book while facing similar obstacles and that if she could do it, then so could I. I took the book home and carefully began to dissect each page. I learned about the concept of bodhicitta, or awakened heart. This was so new to me. The practice of opening our hearts to the pain that surrounds us, softening into the experience of life. I had spent my entire life battling my environment, stuffing emotions, and running from pain. It never occurred to me that this was only prolonging my suffering. I had also been raised with the concept of an eye for an eye, which only breeds more hatred and violence rather than promoting healing. It also defies the love that each of us have deep within us. If we want a different outcome in our modern world, then we need a completely different orientation to ourselves and fellow beings, which is bodhicitta. This book, Pema Chodron, also helped to clarify the purpose of meditation, which is to experience ourselves just as we are. I had hoped that meditation would be a nonstop feel-good fest. However, often the exact opposite would occur. My mind would race with myriad thoughts, or the sensations in my body would be so intense that I would abruptly end the meditation and jump to something less distressing. I now understand that all of this is a necessary part of practice. I believed that I was a broken human that needed repair, and that meditation would help to fix me. Once I came to understand that each of us at our core are imbued with goodness, then I found hope that I might tap into this goodness that lies within. We each possess an inner wisdom which we can rely upon for direction. Meditation helps us to connect with this vital part of ourselves. How could Pema, a Buddhist nun, know these things? How could she be so calm after enduring such hardship in her own life? As with Siddhartha, which is a book I read when I was in 3rd grade, which had been a source of strength so many years ago, this book stoked my passion for Buddhism. But I now focused on using this information for living rather than for escaping life when times were tough. I was developing greater awareness of my inner world, and the rote behaviors that I had relied upon for so many years began to disintegrate. As I shifted on the inside, the outside kept pace. Synchronicities began to occur, and it seemed as if I would bump into just the right person at the right time. So, this Charlotte and I both got a little verklempt right there because her mom was such a dear soul, and when she passed away, it gutted us. But wow, this shop wasn't even open when I came in and met Barb. There was paper on, what was on it? It was like parchment paper. Yeah. And so back to these synchronicities. What the hell drew me into this shop? What? I needed this. How did I meet the exact right person with the exact right information at the exact right time? So I'm a believer. I'm a believer now in the synchronicities. So I bow deeply to you and your mother, and I bow deeply for what you bring to this community, because it was instrumental in me finding the next thread in the tapestry to help me move forward. So thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you.
All right. So do you folks want to learn a tool?
Yes.
For nervous system regulation? Okay, so let's give you the slightest little bit of information. How many of you are awesome multitaskers? You can do 5 things perfectly at the same time. You're lying. Okay. No, well, you might be because you're neurodivergent. But so neurologically, what happens is we don't multitask, we task switch, which means we have these superhighways in the brain of information, right? Moving from place to place. And when we focus on one thing, everything is locked in there. And then when we focus on another thing, we go over here. But this actually, that circuit doesn't stay active. It's a new circuit. We're on to something new. So, and there are, I think, 97% of the population cannot multitask and 3% can. So if you can, wow, 3% of the population. But how about we use this information intelligently to realize that when we shift our attention, all the attention goes to that network, right? So here's another question. Can you be happy and sad simultaneously?
Sure.
Okay. Happy and sad simultaneously.
Bittersweet comes to mind. Yeah.
Okay. So now we're getting into the emotion wheel and melancholy.
Bittersweet. Yeah. A lot. Yeah.
Well, what you've just done is you've introduced the mind into the scenario. I'm talking about at one moment in time, if you're feeling really excited about something, can you feel really sad about the same thing? Challenging, right? Now, can you change on a dime? You bet. So again, let's talk about these networks in the brain. If we learn that we actually single task, not multitask, then we can use that information to our advantage. And resourcing is one way to take advantage of this limitation in cognitive processing. So what we're going to do, each of you independently, is you're going to come up with a person, place, thing, idea that just raises joy or a sense of peace or a sense of ease. And let me give you a few pointers. So for some of my students, it's been a moment in time, like the first time their child called them mama or dad. Or for me, it's not all about me, but I had this really stinky, messed up dog with teeth like this, and I loved her more than anything in life. And so when I came home and I saw this mess of a busted, like my heart melted and the day melted away. Okay, so that's the kind of thing that might be a resource. World peace might be a resource. Okay, are you getting the flavor of what it is? Okay, so I invite you to, if you want to close your eyes, great. If you don't, that's okay. Bring to mind a person, place, thing, idea that generates this sense of joy or peace or ease. So take a few moments. If you have a couple competing, go with the one that really drives it home. Go with the one that's most salient. All right. Now, I invite you to notice as many details as you can about this resource. If it's a place, what time of day is it? What season is it? If it's are there smells? If it's something tactile like this fuzzy little dog, what does it feel like? Does it have a little bell around its neck? What sounds are available? So bring to light as many details as you can about this resource. And finally, I invite you to notice what sensations are coming up as you bring this resource to mind. And by sensations, I mean like maybe a tingling, a warmth, a coolness. In your body, how does this resource present itself? And when you're ready, please come back in the room and realize that this is yours now. Whenever you need a distraction from something that's overwhelming, doesn't mean we're running from it, doesn't mean we're bearing it. We just don't need to feel the world full force. We can shift to this resource. And as our dear friend Elaine Miller Carr says, what else is true? Whatever's going on in the world at any given time is one moment, one experience. What else is true? So your resource is now there for you, your superpower. And you're very welcome. And if you don't get it right off the bat, practice. Don't practice in the heat of the moment. Practice when you're not in the grinder so that you have that available. Okay, so we're coming up on 6:30. I wanted to read a couple of blurbs from the back of the book, just so you understand how important this work is to me and how blessed I am that other people have found it of value. So here in Claremont, we have this outrageous organization called the Trauma Resource Institute, which Mark and I have worked directly with. And this is a blurb that the founder of the Institute, Elaine Miller Carr, wrote. So to give you a little more insight into the book, this book is both a map for the weary traveler and a mirror for the soul ready to awaken. Through practice and presence, it reveals how we can transform our innate wisdom into tangible actions, one that heal, uplift, and reconnect us to our truest selves. This book is a gift, an offering of truth, vulnerability, and hope. May it be a companion to you as you step into your own becoming. And that is why I wrote this book. Is first of all, it's a roadmap for me to get back to where I want to go. And second, because I hope that other folks will find it of value as well. And this is, if you've ever wondered if you could feel better, more grounded, more whole, more alive, this book is for you. Part memoir, part roadmap, Where the Magic Happens, is a deeply personal journey. With honesty, science, and spiritual insight, Dr. Rodgers shares how she was not doomed by adversity, but instead used these challenges to forge greater resilience. And that is what we're going for, resilience. As I started in the beginning, life is going to hit us. It's beautiful sometimes, and it's a mess others. It's how we interact with it that makes all the difference. This book is a call to adventurers who are ready for a sense of well-being, balance, and clarity. It is time to reclaim your power. So I hope you enjoy the book, and I thank Charlotte so much for inviting me to speak here. And what I'd like to do is open it up for any questions that we have before we close.
Well, I have a question.
Yes.
Now, you said the flow book was written by somebody who was teaching at CGU. Now, is that what brought you to come to CGU?
It is, absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the reason why you came to Claremont.
A complete stranger in a bar recommended Flow. I bought it. I'm like, this book is total crap. Because I was skimming the pages. I wasn't paying attention. And when I started to put my attention into the words, it was like a treasure trove. And it was transformative. So if the second person hadn't told me to get my head out of my butt and actually read it.
After the second chapter.
More than the first two chapters.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, that's how I ended up in Claremont, is thanks to Flo and Mike Csikszentmihalyi. Yeah.
Was it a person who wrote the book?
No.
That's interesting. I have to read the book.
You know,
Well, it's your book.
it's,
Your book first.
yeah, it's important. Here's, everyone's path is different, right? So people are like, should I read Flo? And I'm like, what does your heart call you to read? Because it's not going to look the same for any of us, right? So one of the things that meditation brings is clarity. When we shut down the chatter of the mind, things start to pop up, you know, or conversations happen. Like I could have blown this guy. What would have happened if I'd blown this guy off in the bar who said, hey, you should read Flo?
Right, yeah.
What? Would have never met you, would have never met you. I would be probably dead because my life wasn't going so hot and my only option was alcohol and working 60 hours a week. Wasn't going well for me. So yeah. Pay attention and also honor your intuition. Honor your intuition, right? If so, I'm not telling you to read flow. I'm telling you to get quiet and see what your intuition tells you to do next. Make sense? Yeah. That's a great question.
Very cool.
Any other questions?
I just have a statement though.
Absolutely.
What if the reason he said that to you was that you were ready?
I love that.
Yeah. What if you were ready for what he had to say and you were willing to listen?
I love that.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
You were at the right vibrational frequency to accept that message that he told you.
I buy that.
Yeah.
I think that's another layer of the synchronicities. Yeah. And how exciting that that's out there waiting for all of us, not just me. But we got to get quiet and we have to pay attention, or it just goes right over my head, your heads, I would imagine, speaking from my own experience. Much as I was called into this shop that was not open. There was paper. I mean, a normal person would have walked past. There was paper on the windows, closed. I was like, oh, I wonder what's in here. And there's a kind, beautiful bodhisattva in a plastic chair waiting for me with the right book. Another book that I was ready for. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Great observation. Yeah.
Well, was it easy to write this book once you tapped into it?
Oh my God, it was this. I'm going to answer this as honestly as I can. It was one of the most painful experiences of my life. The uncertainty of what I was saying, growing through using these practices on myself and running lab experiments, there was doubt everywhere. This book has taken me roughly, 14 years to write? Because taking all of this and distilling it into something that someone can read has been the greatest challenge. How do you talk about the unexplainable? But it's the darndest thing. A friend of mine calls it a divine assignment. She said, did you ever consider giving up? And I'm like, no, I knew I had to write it. Even when I couldn't stand to write it, I was still writing it. So, yeah. And now that it's done, I get to read other stuff and have a life. And oh my God.
It's kind of like finishing a dissertation.
Yeah. I would do one of those donkey kicks if I had the skill. Yeah, thank you though. No, I mean, but it's something I had to do. So that's all there is to it. Yeah, and I'm very pleased it's over.
Are you thinking of another?
Oh, hell no. I'd come over there and slap you if you weren't my dearest friend. No. Who knows, Charlotte? I hope not, because like I started reading for fun again.
Right.
I totally closed the vessel for many years and only worked with the practice, learning the Dharma, Buddha Dharma, and that's all I did, and experimented with these techniques. So no, I hope not to write for a while. Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions before we wrap up?
How many techniques do you provide in your book? You use one.
Oh, that's wonderful. So we start off with nervous system regulation. And then we move into trauma as part of my story. So I move into mind training, attention training, which I discovered through Buddhism, working with the mind exclusively. And for anyone who's going, religion, no. It's not religion. It is a set of techniques that has been attached to religion, which is unfortunate because it's very beneficial to learn how to become the master of your own mind. And we run from that in the West, and it's why we're a fucking mess. We need to learn to master our own inner world. And then I learned that I had somatic issues to deal with. So I went into some specialized therapy, and then I got into yoga, asana. And wow, was that unleashing the beast, finally getting in touch with these sensations that I'd been running from for decades. So it follows my journey, and towards the end of the book, I get into Vedanta, which is, where the Buddha started was studying Vedanta, but it's about putting it all together. And this is where I will get a little tiny bit sanctimonious, tiny bit, because they're called laws of nature. What you put out into the world, you get back. If you're nice, the world's kind of nice to you. If you're a jerk, you're going to have a rough life, right? And the foundation for these wisdom traditions are Shila, Samadhi, and Prajna. And the first leg of that stool is morality. And the West is not practicing morality. And that's why we got such a problem right now. So I believe all the wisdom traditions, if you get away from the dogma, are saying the same thing, which is be a nice person, help other people. Yeah, it's so simple. So anyways, yeah, all of that's in there, and some nervous system regulation techniques. Yeah, thank you for the question.
How would you describe the other two legs of that? The prajna and the samadhi,
Okay, Shila, morality,
right?
Samadhi, self-regulation, self-management. We have to be able to control our vessel. And through morality and self-control, we get to prajna, which is wisdom. Wisdom on how to move through the world, how to be a good steward of our community and the environment, and be the kind of person when we walk into the room, people are like, oh, hey, it's her, nice. You know, like, yeah. So it's so simple. We're in the West, we totally forgotten about the golden rule, right? But that is the precursor to the other two, is morality. So it is important. It sets a foundation for our lives, our morality. Thank you for that.
But
Yeah.
I think that, I love what you're saying about kindness and things, but when I was unkind, it's because I'm really hurting and I was depressed.
Absolutely.
So you do have to kind of dissolve that to get to that kind heart that we have, right?
Samadhi. Yeah. Each of us has all of these experiences. Some of them are in our formative years, create a nervous system that stays in high alert. Some of us have experiences like war that does a similar job on us. So yes, that is reality. And I'm not saying that that's not something that we have to deal with, but just saying, oh, well, that's the way it is, screw it. Wow, what a waste of a human life. Yeah, I turn to my colleague here who's done so much work with the veterans population because he found a way to work with the adversity in his life and do something good with it. So that's right. That's the juice of life, is making the world a better place. I know I'm sounding like a bumper sticker. This is really lame. But no, each of you are so important. Each of us is so important. And we don't realize how one little thing that we say or do can have a ripple effect that change so many people. So it's a universal law. Shila Samadhi Prajna. If we can make our lives serene, we can deal with the outside world, then we're going to make the world a better place. And we need a lot of people like that right now. We need a lot of sane, kind people in this world. And we are out here. Don't believe the news. There are many, many, many of us out here, which is why I heartily recommend you monitor your diet of media, because it's definitely pushing some negativity. What beautiful questions. Anything else? Well, thank you all so much for being here. This is my very first book signing, and I chose this place purposefully because it is so near and dear to my heart, and I cherish each of you for being here and being a part of it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right.
Your
So,
first live Instagram too.
well, I don't know if it worked or not. We'll see.
Oh.
The
Well, you did a good job if you think it worked.
Yeah, who cares? Who cares? I was here for you folks. So please look around. This is a great shop. There's more gems in the back. This is the book the shelf that Barb pulled the places that scare you off of. So great books. And Charlotte can explain what each of these things are if you have any questions. So thank you so much for coming. I appreciate your
refreshments
food.
too.
Yeah,
We
food.
have fruit, cheese, and water if anybody's thirsty. In the just right off the counter there.
We can buy the book, right?
You can. You can.
You know what? I'll put